An enterprise can automate a service workflow, reduce visible labor, improve response speed, and still report weak margins. Technology did not fail. The margin case did. This is where task efficiency stops being the same thing as margin improvement. The first illusion is simple. A cheaper action should create a cheaper business. Labor falls. Processing accelerates. The same team handles more volume. The case begins as efficiency. But the task was never the full economic unit. A cleaner way to see the reversal is a cost relocation line. On the left sits the visible labor saving. To the right sit recurring AI cost, legacy duplication, usage growth, price leakage, and the service standard the firm creates. The mistake is reading only the first point on the line. The saving is visible. The relocation is quieter. Local savings first widen into system cost. This is why the problem often appears after early success. Pilots isolate the workflow where savings are easiest to measure. They avoid fragmented data, approval delays, exceptions, and legacy coordination. At pilot scale, the boundary is narrow, so the tool looks margin positive. At enterprise scale, the boundary widens. Excluded costs become operating conditions. Many US enterprises do not replace older platforms when they add AI. They place the automated layer on top of billing, service, and reporting systems. Each translation point consumes support. Each exception keeps part of the old process alive. The business wanted substitution. It received coexistence. Coexistence is expensive because the legacy structure rarely disappears. Teams keep older workflows for audits, escalations, and continuity. They also fund the AI layer meant to reduce them. One cost line falls, but two operating models remain. Duplication turns automation from margin relief into margin drag. Retained savings can then leak into the market before they become profit. If AI lowers service cost across a market, competitors can match the capability and customers can demand better terms. A firm may reduce unit cost and still lose margin if the market reprices faster than the firm can retain the gain. The saving exists, but ownership of the saving changes. In competitive US markets, efficiency does not automatically become operating profit. It can move to customers through lower prices, to competitors through matching behavior, or to vendors through platform costs. The workflow gets cheaper. The surplus leaves the firm. This leakage is easy to miss at the wrong P&L level. Cost of revenue may decline because one support activity becomes cheaper. Operating expense can still rise through engineering support, vendor management, infrastructure, oversight, and data maintenance. Gross margin looks better while operating margin weakens. Under quarterly budget pressure, that distinction matters. The project appears successful. The boundary was too narrow. The metric improved before the economics did. Efficiency can then expand the operating promise. AI makes processing feel cheap, so organizations expand queries, summaries, reviews, personalization, and automated actions. Each use case may be defensible. Together, they enlarge the recurring cost base. What looked scalable becomes easier to consume than to control. These expenses arrive through subscriptions, inference, API calls, storage, monitoring, review queues, and vendor workflows. They may not trigger the same approval discipline as hiring, but they still reduce margin. The cost becomes easier to create than to reverse. Operating leverage can then turn against the firm. Revenue growth makes the infrastructure look justified. Revenue softness leaves the cost base in place. A tool adopted to protect profit can make earnings more sensitive to demand softness. The company becomes more automated but less flexible. Service expansion deepens the problem. AI enables faster response, deeper analysis, and broader personalization inside the existing price envelope. Cost per unit of work falls, but work per customer rises. Efficiency expands the obligation. A capability that began as a margin tool becomes part of the customer promise. Faster answers and broader coverage become expected. Unless pricing changes with the promise, the firm has raised the service floor. Margin erodes when the new standard costs more to sustain than the old promise. The compression point is narrower than the original projection. AI lowers the cost of the action, but margin belongs to the operating model, the market, and the customer promise. The task becomes cheaper only when avoided cost exceeds recurring AI cost. Legacy duplication, usage growth, price compression, and the service standard it creates. That is where the margin case either holds or breaks. The final boundary is discipline. AI destroys margins when firms automate before they know which savings they can retain, which costs they are relocating, and which expectations they are creating. The decision is made from visible efficiency, not the full claim on profit. The more convincing the local saving appears, the easier the margin leak becomes to miss. A durable margin case has narrow requirements. Avoided variable cost must exceed recurring AI cost. Legacy duplication must retire. Usage must remain governed. Customer expectations must not outrun monetization. Competitive pressure must not push the gain into lower prices. When those conditions fail, AI can narrow margins without an obvious failure event. The workflow improves. The organization moves faster. But the cost base thickens, the price ceiling holds, and margin contracts. The economics fail quietly because the technology appears to succeed. Return to the cost relocation line. The visible labor saving may still be real, but recurring AI cost, legacy support, consumption growth, service expansion, and pricing pressure can absorb more value than the workflow released. Margin is not destroyed by the task itself. It is eroded by the system that surrounds it. AI does not destroy margins because the workflow fails. It destroys them when the workflow succeeds, but the economics leave the firm.